What's going on, guys? Today I'm talking about, like the title says, the true meaning of the word mundane, or at least another way of looking at it, and a bit of its origin and its use before modern times. And we're going to start right here, obviously, with the definition. Mundane: an ordinary, unexciting thing can be called mundane. Superman hid his heroic feats by posing as his mundane alter ego, Clark Kent. Mundane from the Latin word, this is the big part, mundane from the Latin word mundus, world, originally referred to things on earth. So, with its Latin origin, it's referring to things of this world or of this earth. I've heard religious teachers of all the religions, like rabbis, priests, Muslim priest class, whatever they're called, talk about having a love of this world. And what they mean by they're basically describing this, like a love of sin, I guess you could put it that way, a love of desires, temptations, lust, greed, gluttony, worldly things. If you don't want to be religious about it, one way to think about it that's quite useful, that I think, if the religious stuff puts you off, one way to think about it is, like, let's say you had a goal, right? Like, your goal could be anything. Anything that would get you closer to that goal, or that was related to that goal, would be not mundane. It would be not of this world, right? The things that would move you away from the goal, because the goal is like transcendent above like your day-to-day grind. Like, I want to build this life, but to get there I have to do all these mundane things or whatever. And like the things on television, little remarks people say, the day-to-day grind at work, there's mundane stuff we have to go through that isn't the transcendent goal that reigns supreme above all of that. And it's basically like the meaningful versus the meaningless, the things of value that versus the things that aren't of value. It's almost like sacred and the profane. I could do a whole video on that, like the sacred versus the profane, what it means to mix the sacred with the profane, and mundane would be like the profane. And anyways, the thing to take away from this is mundane comes from mundus, which means of the world or things on earth. I know I gave you the goal example. That's just to try and get across like how the idea functions. But even our ambitions are of this earth. So the things that aren't mundane, like universally, aren't necessarily something that we can just arbitrarily, subjectively make up with our own personal goals. Although that's better than nothing, and like creating a goal for yourself is better than not having one at all, even if it's not like based in like this universal meaning, but I don't deny the existence of that universal meaning, and that's my point, is like your goal isn't necessarily the ultimate thing that's not of this earth, because your goal could be like, oh, I want to get $1 million. Well, okay, like money is definitely a worldly thing. Anyways, in tarot cards, in the tarot card deck, the major arcana, the devil card, we're going to get into this in the next slide, and this is why I'm showing you the Latin origin of the word. The devil card is not necessarily an evil one in the tarot teaching, from what I understand. It's used to highlight the things that chain us to this earth, like the things that keep you away from like true knowledge, your true purpose, your true self, your true goal. It could be like addiction, lust, gambling, things like that, like sin. And there's a lot of ways you can think about what the devil is, and you can elevate him to a higher position than like some basic like irresponsible decadence hedonism type thing. Like, you could actually give him more credit than that. But in the tarot card tradition, from what I can tell, typically it's like your ego or your desires chaining you to this earth. It even shows like a man and a woman chained to him, like they're a prisoner to him in the illustration on the devil card. And it's just something to think about with that. So let me X this one out. So again, mundane from the Latin word mundus, originally referred to things on earth. Main thing to take away from that. So here's a video game, because I always try to like look for truths in history and in religion in my own personal life, and then I try to find parallels of that in works of fiction. It's just what I like to do. It's my favorite thing to do. It's super entertaining to me. It's super interesting. I think it reveals a lot about stuff that we're shown and we're not even really aware that we're being told, like really big ideas. You know, psychologists like Carl Jung, Joseph Campbell, Jordan Peterson, they talk about archetypes. You know, these characters represent aspects of ourselves and different things intrinsic in life, and certain things happen to us, and certain psychology, certain mentalities, you know, and there's a spiritual side to it, but there's also like an intellectual, psychological side to it, and that's where I was at for a while. I'm getting more accepting of the spiritual side of things. Anyways, the point is, this is from a video game called Devil May Cry. I don't know exactly which one, but check out the name of this demon character, the evil character, Mundus. That's the name for the world in Latin, and they named him Mundus. You know, King of Hell, Emperor of the Dark, Dark Emperor, Demon Emperor, Prince of Darkness, King of the Demon World. And that's not an accident that they named him that. Another interesting thing is how I just told you I try to look for parallels with religion and psychology and my personal life and fictional stories. There's also parallels in astrology and astrotheology, and Saturn is the planetary astrological symbol for Satan, and I've been over that, and I'm trying to, you know, keep this video limited because there's so many things I could say, but he in the tarot card is represented as the devil and the world. So again, we keep seeing this connection between the devil character and the world, and it's very interesting to think about that. Like, and I even have some biblical verses I can show you, and I'll get to that. But you know, let's just talk about the video game first. So again, they named the primary antagonist Demon Lord Mundus, which is things of this earth. So that's interesting. Let's see. Okay, I'll just pick one, I guess. Mundus, this is a description about the character in Devil May Cry. Mundus is depicted as the epitome of evil within the Devil May Cry universe. He has no loyalty or compassion for his minions, gleefully and sadistically killing one of his own generals, Griffin, after he failed to defeat Dante and pleaded for his master's aid, or even using Trish as a bargaining chip over to Dante to ensure an easy victory, which could be seen as cowardly. Like most other demons in the series, Mundus has a low opinion on humans, even going as far to wonder if Dante's human heritage has weakened his father's blood. So again, I'm not like a huge player of this game series, but there's just so much stuff. The key things in that paragraph to take away would be, okay, epitome of evil, there's one. He has no loyalty or compassion for his own minions, for the own people that serve him. That's a common trait you'll find across multiple contexts or multiple stories with villain characters. They're, you know, you could paint them out to be totally evil. Some more well written, I guess you could put it, stories kind of blur that line a little bit more, and it's kind of like their ambition outweighs their desire to preserve their relationships with people. So, like, he'll use Trish as a bargaining chip in order to ensure an easy victory. So it's not necessarily that he doesn't care about her, but he wants to win more than anything else. So he'll do. I don't even know who Trish is to him. That could be like his wife or something, for all I know. Like most other demons in the series, Mundus has a low opinion on humans. If you know a lot about Satanism, it's about believing you're God, like trying to become God, thinking that you're God. And that's kind of why the tarot card highlights the ego as one of the things that chains you to this earth, and is one of the characteristics of the devil card, of the tower card. And the tower is like the Tower of Babel. It's like your ego coming down. At least that's one way to look at it. There's multiple ways to look at that, because that's an old story, and it's deep. The point is, there's a relationship between the ego and thinking you're God, and wanting to become God. If you remember, that's the serpent in the garden's initial promise to man, to Adam and Eve, is, eat this fruit and ye shall become as gods. That's referred to as like the ancient hope, or the ancient promise. And obviously it's a lie, it's a trick, it's a ploy. He ends up ruling over you. Whatever. This isn't. I'm not going to get into that. But the point is, it's like a false transmission, because they want to become not like themselves anymore. They want to rise so high above everything that they're not even human anymore, and then they start to look at other people like they're not humans. Like, it could be like the philosophy of the elites, like, if you don't use your intelligence, you're not a real human. You know what I mean? Like, they could look at you like that. Or actually, they wouldn't even say. If they said that about you, it would be like, that would be like them trying to preserve the standard of what being a human is, and that's not even what they're trying to do. And they look at human as a bad thing, like being human's actually bad, and they're trying to rise above that. They're trying to be God, or they think that they are God. Anyways, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but some deep information in there. Let me read this last part. Though he hates Sparta, he did note he could see the same light from Sparta's eyes and Dante's, which could indicate a measure of respect he once held for his greatest general. Okay. Let's see. Visually, this is more information on the Mundus character. We'll get to two other biblical things after. I'm trying to keep this video short, and it's a big topic, and it's easy for me to jump to seemingly disconnected references or topics, but to me it's all connected. Maybe that's just me drawing upon things that I shouldn't, or me being unorganized, but I hope you guys get the picture. Visually, he looks like a god. He purposely makes himself look godlike. Well, there you go. That's what I was just saying. So we took that to heart by making his silhouette godly and majestic. The crumbling second form is meant to show, there's a typo there, to show how pitiful he really is, in contrast with the majesty of that first form. And you could obviously make that like how people present themselves versus how they truly are on the inside and in their hearts, and like what's really behind the facade, the posturing, or you could look at it as like the devil's control over you is really not as. Sometimes, man, he seems like the ultimate foe, like he has this world on lockdown, and there's absolutely no way. However you want to look at like what that devil is, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, and it seems like sometimes he absolutely has this earth on lockdown. And what you could look at that like, oh, his true pitiful form is like, he's really not as strong as you might think sometimes. Like, you have more power than you believe, and the sin always requires requires you to be complicit. It always requires your agreement to it. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta accept that you're gonna keep doing the drug or whatever. So it requires your permission. It rules through your permission. These entities, this psychology can't necessarily manifest itself on Earth without your help. So in that sense, it kind of makes them like look powerless. That's just me speculating on like what this could mean. Mundus's appearance when he battles Dante is that of a gigantic living statue of an old bearded angel with a circular depression in his chest where an eye-like core is located in his true form. During his final battle with Dante, the statue breaks away, revealing a grotesque, writhing mass of living tissue with 3 eyeballs. That's important, that 3 eyeballs and hundreds of hands coming out of it. Okay. Almost done with the Devil May Cry stuff. It's just, to me, it doesn't matter what format the information's being told to me in. Like, some people will automatically tune out if you're talking to them about, like, truth through certain kinds of fiction that they're not necessarily interested in. I can pick a game or a movie that I've never even played or watched and just find a certain scene in it, and it can speak massive volumes to me. Like, I've never played this game. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need to have played it. It's just I'm connecting it to all these other things that I've seen and know from all over different cultures and occult studies and religious teachings, my own personal life, things like that. Mundus's 3 eyes are likely a reference to Satan, who is portrayed with 3 faces in Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. Satan is also considered the prince of this world. Right there, they're telling you. And the Prince of Darkness, both of which are titles that Mundus, which again means the earth or of this world, and so does Mundane, shares with him, which is the point of this video. Mundus's pseudo-angelic appearance also coincides with Satan's traditional role as a fallen angel within the Christian faith. So again, the thing to take out of that is the 3 eyes. If you know, there's a bunch of ways you could look at that. In Kabbalah, the tree of life, things are numbered. There's sephira or circles on the tree of life, and 3 is Saturn. And it's also color coded. 3 is Saturn, and it's black. And there's corresponding tarot cards with the Kabbalah, just like there's corresponding planets with the tarot cards and Kabbalah. So it all connects. Everything connects, and it plays out across all the occult schools of thought so perfectly. It's almost like this can't be wrong. So you got the color black, Saturn as the 3 in Kabbalah, and the planet Saturn associated with the 3, and the tarot cards, the world, and the devil. It all adds up. So when you see this number 3, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, because you could think of like the Holy Trinity and stuff. When I think of a Trinity, I'm not going to get into the Trinity right now. That'll take me too long. But like Pink Floyd, something interesting on that Dark Side of the Moon cover is you have a beam of light going into a black pyramid, or a black triangle, which is 3, which is, I'm speculating on this, but that could be Saturn, whatever that black triangle is, and then you have a rainbow coming out the other end. And there's a lot with, and Saturn is like the keeper of this world in some sense. One way to look at him is he's time. He rules the earth. Like, the only way you're really going to beat him is by, like, ultimately, like, dying and passing on to see what's really going on the other side. And in a lot of depictions of the rainbow, it's like, you know, over the rainbow, like, passing on to the next world. The Nordic, in Nordic mythologies, the bridge that connects Midgard, where humans live, to Asgard, where the gods live, is connected by a rainbow bridge. Something to think about. Again, I'm going off topic there. It's too different for me to continue to talk about. Though Mundus's appearance and basis is rightfully in the fashion of that of Judeo-Christian design, the absence of any god sort of figure mentioned throughout the series appears to draw basis from the demon king Mara and the fiend's depiction from Japanese Buddhism known as Darukutenmao, or the Great Sixth Heaven's Demon King. Okay. Interesting. So they're telling you right there that they're basing the story off of the game, or the characters off religious archetypes, whether it's Christian, Jewish, Buddhism, Japanese, whatever. You know, they're telling you that they're drawing upon insanely old and insanely deep topics for the simple story of a video game. It's not even a secret. And I have a video on how when you learn different things, the way you see stuff is different. Like when you take in different information, you see the world differently. So when you take in information about these religions and symbols and archetypes and psychology and conspiracies and whatever, you'll start to actually see it more in your own life and in the stories you watch and participate in. Anyways, so there's the example from Devil May Cry. So, I'm not exactly sure why I saved this. I'll read it. It's something in Rome, I believe. Yeah, I'll just read it and then I'll tell you maybe something I think about it. I saved it because it obviously has to do with what I'm talking about. But the Mundus Cerealis, literally the world of Ceres or Solaris Mundus, was a hemispherical pit or underground vault in Rome. Its location is uncertain. It was usually sealed by a stone lid known as the Lapis Manalis on August 24th, October 5th, and November 8th. There's probably something significant about those dates, but I can't tell you. And it was opened with the official announcement, Mundus Padet. The Mundus is open. And offerings were made to their agricultural or underworld deities. So right there, let's just stop for a minute. Offerings were made in the Mundus pit. So there's the pit of Mundus. And in the Mundus pit, they made offerings to agricultural and underworld deities. If you know anything about Saturnian gods, Saturnian mythological figures like Kronos to the Greeks, one way to think about him is like a god of agriculture, a god of like authority, a god of civilization building. His symbol is a sickle, which has like metaphysical and psychological symbolic meaning behind it, but on the most obvious level, that's like an agricultural farming tool. So it's interesting that in Rome, they opened this Mundus pit, the world pit, and offerings were made to Saturnian, basically. Not that every agricultural god is probably Saturnian, but most of them probably are if you look into it. I know for a fact at least some of them are. Or underworld deities, including Ceres as goddess of the fruitful earth and guardian of its underworld portals. Its opening offered the spirits of the dead temporary leave from the underworld to roam lawfully among the living. That sounds... I don't know, if you look into like some of the conspiracies around CERN, and if you look at some of the symbols they use, and some of the plaques they have in front of the statue of Shiva, how they basically say they're trying to like cross the lines between religion and mythology and occult and science. Like it says that flat out on plaques. And all their machines are named after mythological figures. They have a statue of Shiva outside. A lot of the conspiracy is... I have videos of scientists that basically say modern astrophysics sounds like a Kabbalistic text. So there's definitely a bridge between modern science and like occult religious teachings. It's just a matter of how you look at them. They're not really as at war with each other as the general public is kind of led to believe, like, oh, atheist owns this Christian, or Christian owns this atheist, you know, like those kind of videos you'll see. But the conspiracy is that they're trying to open like a portal up, and it's kind of to like the other side, you know, lift the veil or whatever. This is a little bit off topic of this video, and that's one of the most out there conspiracies that I kind of buy into a little bit, at least in some ways. And it's interesting that, you know, they're opening a portal called the Mundane Pit to the underworld and letting these spirits lawfully roam among the living. Whether that's all symbolic or there's something like actually real spiritually to that, I will leave that up to you, because I cannot answer that question for you. I don't know. I'm believing that sort of stuff more every day, but I'll leave that up to you. The days when Mundus was open were among the very few occasions that Romans made official contact with the collective spirits of the dead. Okay, that's all I have on this topic. Just another thing from Rome talking about Mundus, the world, demons, the dead. Very interesting word, like the word mundane. We just think of it as like, oh, that's boring. You know what I mean? And this word has a lot more to it than, you know, than I originally thought. Anyways, hope you guys are seeing some kind of bigger picture. Okay, I'll save the positive note for last. So here, this isn't the last one. The next one's the last one. But here we have just more confirmation of what I'm saying. At least if you look at like the Bible as something to gain knowledge from, or something that has some truth in it, I guess. Just biblical verses that basically say the devil is the ruler of this world, and we know mundane means mundus, which means the world or worldly things, and we know in tarot and Saturn, all these things come back to like representing the devil being the god of this world, and here the Bible just kind of confirms it even further, or Jesus does at least. I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has nothing in me. I've talked about these verses before in my video, Saturn Symbolism. It's a long video where I just show a bunch of pictures and religious symbols and historical symbols and stuff used in movies and video games and corporations that they're all referencing Saturn. But, you know, I thought I'd bring this up again because it plays into this video, so if you've seen this before, I apologize. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out, and I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all my peoples to myself. This he said, signifying by what death he would die. So again, the ruler of this world will be cast out. Jesus is not saying God doesn't run this earth. According to these, if you just kind of use like your deductive reasoning skills, it's like, okay, if Christ isn't the ruler of this world, and he's talking about him being judged and cast out and all that, and if you even think about why would a guy that's, okay, if Jesus, whether he's historic or not, or if he, whether he's historic or symbolic, I'll leave up to you. I'm not here to tell you the truth, what to think about that. That's for you. It makes sense that the archetypal, at least, or the real person, the symbolic representation of like the sinless man, the good man, would be murdered and betrayed for existing in an environment that the devil rules over, the ruler of this world, you know? Like, it makes sense that, like, it's like if you put, like, something that doesn't belong, it's not of this world. I'm pretty sure that's another name of God in Christ. It's like, he's not of this world. I am not of this world. I go to another place. Like, it makes sense that this world, like, kind of, like, rejects him, you know? Like, oh, you're weird, like, you don't belong here, you're not of this place. And that's, like, it's a good thing, because he's sinless. He's transcendent above all else. And it just makes sense that's why the crucifixion, that's one of the reasons in my mind that the crucifixion is like the real high point, or like high point of like symbolic significance in the Christian religion. Like obviously there's other ways you can look at what the crucifix is, but that's one of the reasons that, like, you know, obviously Christians look at that portion of the story with great importance, because that's the symbol of their actual religion, is the cross, and that's what he's crucified on. Some of the crosses will actually have Christ still on it. You know, like it's not just a cross, it's actually him on it. Anyways, of judgment, because the ruler of this world is judged. You are of your father, the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and the father of it. But because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Which of you convicts me of sin, and I tell the truth? And if I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears God's words. Therefore you do not hear, because you are not of God. To put that mildly, you've been in and of the world so much that you can't even recognize like truth when it comes into contact with you. Like, people think they really know a lot, and like that they're really like good, and like, but like, if you're held to the standard of like God or Christ, we're going to fall short of it, and that's okay. That's just part of the game. We're not God, but obviously we can be redeemed. You know, there's things that we can do. It's just, again, it's like the Matrix, man. Like, you've been born into this environment, you've been born into this world, you've been born given certain information, you've been born with certain temptations, and like, you are of the world, so you can't even recognize when this guy is telling you the truth. And some people went as far as like to not only not understand what he was saying, but like get so pissed off at what he was saying that they wanted to kill him. Anyways, and you made me alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked according to the course of this world. There it is again. According to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, among whom always were all once conducted ourselves in the lusts of our flesh. There you go again, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. So, you know, this video is going on longer than I wanted it to, just like it always does, but there you have it again. It spells it out for you. Lastly, okay, a positive note, instead of, because I'm basically telling you the devil runs the earth, or it's weird that mundus and mundane mean of the world, and we keep seeing a correlation between the devil and the world and the earth popping up as him like dominating it or controlling it or having dominion over it. And I think that's accurate, to be honest with you. I think that's accurate. I think there's like a thin, bright, thin silver lining, in the minds and hearts of man that's truly good. And it shines through, there's moments of clarity and stuff, but it's hard. Anyways, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, right there, in mundus, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. That's the key part. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So if you lay yourselves treasures upon earth, which is like, again, like what we talked about, worldly things, like not meaningful things like money, meaningless sex, gambling, sin, whatever, however you want to look at that. Whatever way makes you relate to it the best. Think about it that way. Whatever way helps you understand it the best. Use your own parallels. Use a parallel from a story that you like a lot, you know? What that's saying is what you place your value and your importance on is going to develop your character. And that's just true. You know, like, and that's why I have such a hard time nowadays than I used to when I was younger, because I've learned different things and my values have changed. Like, my heart's not in a lot of this stuff. My heart's in this stuff, you know. My heart's not in the music. It's not in Hollywood. It's not in celebrity. It's not in drug abuse. It's not in alcoholism. It's not in lust. It's in love, you know. It's like, I don't care about that stuff. And I turn from it just organically. It's not like some people call me like a square, or like oh, he's scared of this stuff. It's like, I'm not scared. It's just, I don't, like, when you, it's kind of like when you're just not interested in something, you just naturally turn away from it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I haven't done that completely, but I've definitely changed where it's just like, I just intuitively know and feel better now that I just organically, naturally turn from this stuff, because my heart, my treasure's not on here. My treasure's somewhere else. My treasure's more transcendent than that. How I was saying earlier, another down-to-earth way you could think about how, like, the idea of mundus and like a transcendent thing above that, like things of the earth versus above that. You could think of it as almost, this is a little bit off topic, but like you could think of it as you know, instant gratification versus long-term plan. That's another way you could think of it. Like the truly meaningful across long periods of time versus like what you initially want for that short little hit of desire. You know, and anyways, man, you know, I hope this was useful for you guys. I need to end this video. This is a great bit of advice from the Bible, whether you know, if you understand what you're reading, whether you believe, you know, you don't necessarily have to be a Christian. I'm not a Christian teacher. I'm not trying to convert you to the religion. I have a lot of respect for it. I like what it represents, but I'm not trying to convert you or anything. It's just drawing examples from here. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you guys learned something or saw some kind of bigger picture. Let me know what you think.